Hello and welcome. I am Tim Mosso. This is Watches Tonight at the 1916 Company. This evening I talk industry changes that I would like to see, purchase regrets, we chat live, and I share your wrist shots right here tonight on Watches Tonight. We've got Nick on the switcher and Garrett standing by, so as ever I thank them. And while we're warming up, do me a favor. I have just made my debut on TikTok. As I like to say, I'm now the world's oldest TikTok teen. Tim Mosso. You can find me under my name, and it's short reviews. It's also going to be a little bit more, I guess, off the cuff, funny, humorous, and informal than my actual Tim Mosso Instagram page. So stay tuned for lots of Squash the Pug, car shows, and things I do in my spare time. Welcome to everyone in the box. I hope you join me on TikTok. We're now like 52 strong and growing. But Edward Ledden of Sweden, Soma R from Europe, Mark S from Brooklyn, Miroslav, Jim Millett from the UK, Arto Charles. We've got Tim Wright, Rob Filmer from Chicago, Thomas Burnett, McLauder. We've got Smoko. We've got Butik One from Poland. We've got Michael Everywhere from the great island of Manhattan. Michael A. from Orlando, IDK from Nolans. We got Rick on Watches, Moto Gunner from Athens, Georgia. You're in the show. O'Neill M. from Chicago. Mr. Jiggly. Weed and Watches. That's an all-new theme for us, plus Mike S. and Mason 1. Matt Nino from Arizona. Welcome from the desert. All right. Instant gratification. I asked, you answered. We're opening with some big ones. Roberto T. slays with his Vacheron Constantin Tourbillon, reference 30051. Oh my gosh, we could end there, but he's got that and a Haldemar H1 Flying Tourbillon, the ultimate exit watch. So we can stop the show right here. We're done. Nothing's going to surpass that. We peaked early. Paul I. is on Sandy Island, barbecuing lobster, which sounds exquisite, with his white gold Patek Nautilus, and yes, they make a rubber strap for it. Jared L. sports his 1916 bought Moritz Grossman Bennu Power Reserve. Thank you for trusting our company, Jared. And here it is on its glorious case back. I've often said when you get close to these, they are better detailed even than Lange, a best kept secret in the industry. Jeff S. scored a Chapek, and as you can see, he's got his Chapek Antarctique Rattrapant, and now it's on your screen. Rory S. is in Tenerife, Spain, with a his and hers of Patek Philippe and Vacheron Constantin. Guys, send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at the1916company.com to see your passion in this fashion. Watch Enthusiast is joining us from Italy. We've got Deech 2086. We've got Andrew Lepoidevin joining from Guernsey. We've got Tobister McDonkey. Thoughts on the Citizen 0100 original titanium. Excellent if you have access and the budget. Mason 1 is wearing his 50 Fathoms 5015 tonight, which you know I love to hear. And we got Jeremy McBee from Hanover, Pennsylvania, relatively local as these things go. Now, 2025 watch industry changes that we need to see. A new year is upon us. 2024 is all but over. At this point, we're doing retrospectives, we're doing year in review type features, maybe a little bit of pre-2025, but we're looking ahead to a new model year as an industry, and we should be demanding more than the usual parade of novelties. The new watches are a given, and you know they're coming. They always do. But we need more. We need to add more value for collectors, which means we need to improve standardization, the quality of the experience, and we need to reform the watch space in meaningful ways. That entire ecosystem of circumstances that exist around the watch. Now, let's get a uniform standard. Let's start with this, very basic. Let's get a uniform standard for what a swimmable watch is in 2025. Obviously, surface swimming, pools, beaches, that's it. Maybe some hot tubs. That's the limit for 99% of users who are ever going to take watches in water. Anyone who's planning to dive the Monitor or the Andrea Doria already has pro dive gear expressly for that, and they don't really have any questions about what it takes. So I'm talking about swimming water resistance as it relates to regular life, no deeper than the deep end at the pool. So what qualifies? Well, we have an ISO, but A, you have to buy it, so that's a problem. And the 22810-2010, which is the ISO, and then last year it was revised. That defines a water-resistant watch, but it involves sustained submergence of, are you ready for this, 10 centimeters, and it allows a certain amount of leakage during a tame 2 ATM overpressure test. And again, if you even want to know what's in this thing, you have to pay for it. We did when I did my dive watch explainer. Check out how to on this channel, but we actually bought the ISO 6425 for a dive watch. It's long and it's dry, like a drag of fine tonic and gin, only not as pleasurable. So here's the thing. Most of the industry rates 30-meter water resistance as splash and rain only. But just this year, Patek Philippe declared all of its watches to be water resistant to a true 30 meters. Now you start adding that up and you realize that even to those of us in the old colonies, that's somewhere around, what, 90 to 100 feet? And at the end of the day, none of us are going that deep. So does that really mean that a 5327 perpetual calendar and the Aquanaut, which again, I can't overemphasize, includes aqua in its name, they have the same level of water resistance now, despite dramatically different case assembly. And again, going by 30-meter depth rating, if that's a true 30, then both of these are unconventionally appropriate for reef diving. No technical changes were made to many of these snapback push-down crown Patek dress watches to enable this unprecedented true 30-meter claim. So are we to believe that Patek underrated its watches previously, or that the industry as a whole is doing that with the 30-meter claim? I'm not really sure. I'm glad that you can now swim with all these Pateks. What I wonder is, how about everyone else that's claiming 30 meters? Real? I don't know. I always believed that 50 meters plus a screw-down crown was the bare minimum for swimming with a watch, and that's often what I've advised. So 50 meters and a push-down crown on a Royal Oak Jumbo, no go. 50 meters on something like a 15510 with a screw-down crown, game on. So I've seen FP Journe claim that its 30-meter rated Elegant, which has a screw-down crown, can be used for surface swimming. Pool, beach, fine. And I've been advised that Omega considers its push-down crown 50-meter Moonwatch to be something that you can absolutely take swimming. So yeah, we need a little bit of standardization here. What can go in the shower? What can go in the pool? What can go in the ocean? Not just a dive rating for some sort of tool-style watch, but a real go, no-go for swimming, and then explain what swimming means. And the industry needs to standardize this. They can't lean on the ISO, which is kind of secluded, difficult to understand, and sets a low bar. And it's not enough to say 30, 50, or 60 when every brand seems to have its own standard for what that means. We need some standardization. Somebody needs to step up and unify all these Swiss brands. And here's the thing. This is a country where you can drive from one side to the other in about 3.5 hours. I know, I've done it. Most of the industry is local to, I don't know, maybe 1/3 of that country. This can be done. This is not the United Nations. Get together, decide what swimmable water resistance is. Now, Randy S. is saying, IWC has the clearest water resistance chart of anyone I've seen. Yes, they do, and they've long been among the best in being clear about that. Patek Philippe saying, nothing entices me more to wear my perpetual calendar than a nice Vegas-style pool party, and he is wearing a perpetual calendar Patek. We have Huxley, Orwell, and Rand in the box, shouting out my beanie, which I appreciate. Neil Pattison saying, will Patek fix your watch for free if leaks occur, provided you stick to the plan and stick to 30 meters? That's a really good question. It's like with their rating of inaccuracy. Patek's rating of its timepiece accuracy is across the board among the best in the business. Can you make a warranty claim if it doesn't live up? That's an open question, but I think you've got a valid case that, yeah, you could. We've got Sean Jansen joining in from Amsterdam, staying up late in continental Europe. And we got Ludig asking, can I wear my vintage Patek minute repeaters in the showers? That is a big donut. Don't try it. All right. And then Smoko asking, is the ISO the same as the DIN 8306? It often is. They often are homogenized. And then what else is going on there? I'm not saying for sure it is, but they often are. We got Sutats joining in, and Kasim H from Dubai staying up really late. So late, in fact, that he might be staying up early with us. We got Madman, pool party at Mosso's house. I don't have a pool, but my parents do. Maybe we could ask him. All right, so another thing, service. The worst part of owning a luxury watch. There needs to be some sort of upfront commitment to get watches back within 2 months. I don't care. Unless it's some sort of super complex vintage restoration project or a watch with 400 parts and a grand complication movement, we need to have every major watch brand and group local to each major market, which means North and South America, Northern and Southern Europe, Central Asia and the Middle East, East Asia, and of course every other area that is sort of a local market like the UK, for example, or Japan. This needs to be done so that local service can be provided to speed the return of watches. Because not only is service ridiculously priced, but the time you have to wait often is insult added to injury, is how I describe it. So there are some brands like Mito, for example, that tell you right up front what you're going to pay for different types of watches, which is great. I would love to see the rest of the industry do what Mito does. Tell you what you're going to pay up front for a standard service. No damaged watches, no it needs parts, but if it's a basic service, you should know. They should have a frame of reference. There should be some sort of standardization there. And they should tell you that you're going to get your watch back in less than 2 months. Now, I think local factory-certified service centers are the way to do this, but they're free to do it however they like, as long as they can be transparent, quick, and give you a reasonable price quote up front. This needs to happen, and I don't need to say much more. Brands, please figure out how to make this happen. In 2025, you will be my hero, and probably hero to a lot of others. We have Neil Patterson asking, Tim, what is your average experience of service time for most luxury brands? My average experience is that if the work is done in country, that is the country where you live, then it's going to be something under 2 months. If it has to go overseas, it's going to be 3 or more. If it needs parts, you can add a month to that. And if it's a restoration, minimum of 6 to 8 months. Same if it's very complicated. What else is going on? We've got Norm M joining in. Norm, always good to see you. And we got KVB saying, absolutely, watch brands need to step up their after-sale infrastructure. Look at how watch production has exploded. You know how Ferrari and Lamborghini now make thousands or even tens of thousands of cars per year? And they like to say something like 85% of all Lamborghinis are still on the road? That's because 85% of all Lamborghinis ever made have been made since like 2005. So they're all newly produced as the sector has exploded. The same has happened with luxury watches. You've seen Patek Philippe go from, I don't know, maybe like 10,000 watches in the 90s to 7 or 8 times that today. Audemars Piguet wants to make 100,000 watches. They used to be in that 5 to 15,000 range back in the 80s and 90s. Now we're getting to the point where most of the luxury watches ever made, true luxury class watches, often with a lot of complications, they've been made in the last 5 to 15 years, and companies have not scaled up service as fast as they've scaled up manufacturing. And these two things have to be symmetrical, or it's going to lead to a lot of unhappy customers. This is one of my top 3 wishes for the luxury watch owner experience in 2025. Now let's talk about something else. Let's talk about warranty. I think we can all agree that at this point it needs to be like 5 years across the board. Everyone needs to give 5 years. Patek stepped up this year to 5. Tudor, I think, did this a year ago. As with most things, 5 seemed to standardize when Rolex first announced it. So they were not the first, but they were probably the ones that forced the industry to realize this needs to be the new normal. Not everyone's there, though. Some, happily, have exceeded expectations, as most Richemont brands, through some sort of registration and extension, now offer you up to 8 years, although Lange right there, they offer 2 with a 1-year extension, so I could see some room to improve there. And they are within Richemont. So do what IWC, Vacheron, and JLC are doing. You guys will be all right. And I would say even then, there are still many, and this includes high horology names, that need to extend beyond that like 2 to 3 years. I'm not going to name names because I really don't want to shame anyone. They're doing their best. But I do think that we know enough about what's possible from all these other 5 to 8 year brands that we realize it's not a technical feat that, say, brand XYZ can't achieve if, I don't know, a basic Cartier Santos gets 8 years. Now, Baume & Mercier, arguably the entry level for Richemont, gives 8 years on this $4,650 Riviera, and they have sub $4,000 watches with the same 8-year coverage. And in almost farcical fashion, Oris offers 10 years of warranty and a 10-year service interval on a Kermit the Frog themed Pro Pilot X. And yep, that is Kermit's face right there on the date wheel. Oris and its 2020 debut Caliber 400 have almost become like the Hyundai of watches. Back when Hyundai in the United States wanted to make everyone take it seriously, they went from a time when 2 to 3 years, 24,000 to 36,000 miles of warranty was standard, and 4 years, 48,000 was standard for luxury. Hyundai went and they offered 100,000 miles in 10 years, and people took note. They realized that Hyundai, despite not selling very expensive cars, was willing to make a colossal commitment to the owner. They generated a lot of goodwill and got a lot of people to pay attention and become loyal as a result. This can also happen in the watch space, and I think Oris, with its affordably priced watches, can show the way. And again, that is a watch that is incredibly accommodating in its price. You can still get that same 10-year warranty on a sub $4,000 Aqua State dive watch. So, perhaps most intriguing, now this relates to how long you can go between services, which in my opinion should dictate what a warranty is on a watch. If you can go 10 years in between services like the Oris, I think you should be able to put a 10-year warranty on the watch. After all, what's going to go wrong if the watch is able to run reliably and safely for 10 years? So, I recently surveyed a Roger W. Smith Series 4 that I'm going to publish with an extended study and photo spread on quill and pad. But what was interesting is that I had the full boxed set for this. Inside the boxed set, it expressed that Roger W. Smith offers a 5-year warranty, but the text associated with the paperwork, if you look right here, we recommend you have it serviced every 10 to 15 years. For less frequent use, we recommend a service interval of 20 years. Okay, is that giving up the game right there? Now, some of this might be Smith specific. He uses the latest version of the Daniels coaxial escapement, which can run without lubrication. But there's still a need to provide lubrication for the rest of the power supply in the train, as well as the oscillator, the balance staff itself, and the escape wheel need to be lubricated, and that's often a sensitive lubrication. So, let's say 10 to 15 years is the limit of what's possible without the coaxial. I feel like that should be true of any mass-produced watch because these giant groups certainly have technology that Roger Smith doesn't have in his little workshop with his 10 to 12 watches a year. Between making their own lubricants, owning their own manufacturing facilities, computer-assisted design, a staff of scientists, original research and development, I feel like that 10 to 15 year warranty might even be possible if that's the service interval of a watch made by a guy who's literally himself and a couple of other watchmakers in a large shed. If he can do it, the industry can do it. But most of that, I'm sorry to say, it's probably not going to happen. So how long can a warranty reasonably extend? Frankly, Oris says 10 is viable, and I think that's the new bar for the industry. Tell me if I'm wrong. Let's see what's going on in the box. Okay, so what are you guys saying here? Let's see how many viewers do we have. 222, keep that number going up. And then Mark S. saying, Tim's pronunciation of New Orleans was way off as a 504 native. Well, you know what? My family has roots in Georgia. So between Georgia and Florida and New York, we've never gotten it right. We're proudly in error. What else is going on there? I think between Atlanta and New Orleans, you've got the two great, rivalries of the South. And I was always on the Atlanta side of things, and my Aunt Kathy and her husband were always on the New Orleans side of things. What else is going on? We got SJ saying, go Georgia. And then we've got Ludwig saying, 5 should be the bare minimum for any watch over 20,000. Moto Gunner, Georgia represent. And then we got Jeff S saying, Greensboro, Georgia right there. I lived in Augusta and in Woodstock outside of Atlanta once upon a time. And we have Von Krul saying that Kermit watch is a bit divisive, seems to induce rage in some WIS types. Well, don't worry, they've got other versions of it that are as serious and frowny-faced and constipated as anything else we do in the very earnest world of the watch enthusiast who does not smile. So for those of you who take your watches very seriously, we won't buy the Kermit watch. We have another Oris for that. Okay, I don't take watches super seriously, so I like the Kermit. Spring bars, I hate these things. They need to go away. Here's the deal. You've seen my reviews of Breguet watches, and among others, you've heard my endless, so that's right there. That is a Breguet Classique perpetual calendar. So what makes this special? Like most of the traditional Breguet wristwatches, you have screw-fixed straps. So take a look how this works. There's a screw with a bar, and then there's a set screw to hold it in place. This is an expensive way to make a lug and hold on a strap. It's also the right way to do it. Now, it doesn't have to have this sort of anachronistic Pastille style lug, but this system is much more secure. I have seen spring bars come to tears many times because they get old, because they're not properly seated, because someone used a spring bar that's too thin or too short. It happens a lot. And this should not be happening in 2025 on luxury watches. You might be sick of hearing it from me, wonder why I say it, and even demand some evidence for my claims. Well, it came to a head this weekend. Well, I've seen examples of watches that dropped on hard surfaces due to improperly seated spring bars or aged spring bars. It had never happened to me. I was writing an article about that Breguet. I know, the irony, right? When my Garrick S6 dropped off my wrist and onto the carpet of my living room, literally I had my arm on the rest of my chair where I do my writing, and I just heard thunk. And this watch that I'd worn for 2 years on a monthly basis for at least a couple of days a month, it just fell right off. And I looked at the spring bar, I looked at the strap, I looked at the lug. There was no obvious reason for this failure. Could a mistake have been made 2 years ago? Could it have held up all that time by accident? I don't know. All I can tell you is I've never had that happen on a watch with a screw-fixed lug. If you've ever worn Panerai, Breguet, the Blancpain 50 Fathoms in the modern era, you know what I mean here. This is something that has to change. No damage was done due to the short fall and the soft surface, but my goodness, what a disaster that would have been. Okay, screws and bars, they cost so little to install. A little bit more money, just a little bit more money on the manufacturing side. I can't fathom the continued dominance of spring bars. There's a better way, guys, and it's available right now. Brands can include a little screwdriver in the box for only pennies extra for those who wish to swap their straps. It's time. All right, jumping into the box, we get Jeff S. We've got the Timekeeper's Guide saying Breguet are up there with the best, which I agree. Look for that article on Quill and Pad. Jim Millett saying we need some Mosso merchandise, and I am more than happy to say it's coming, including the debut of a strap using a material never previously applied in the watch space. It's going to be a lot of fun. And what else is going on here in the box? We got greetings from Canada, which I love to see. And Time Hill asking where I went to college, New Hampshire, where it was very cold. And we have a request for a Mosso colored beanie. Okay, well, we shall see. And then right here we have a question, what's on the wrist tonight? It's my Dan Reuter DR02. All right, great chronograph, a collaboration with Dan that was actually the first Tim Mosso Facebook group watch. Wrist shots number 2, Michael B. Stages a drive-in with his Rolex GMT Master 2 and his Cadillac XT5. We got Jimmy Y, who gives us a different GMT look with the Dark Knight in Paradise, looking sharp, very cool. We got Matt B of Sydney, Australia, introduces us, this is a debut on the show, to the Bosel Ocean Moon. Jim R. sets our mark for James Bond ardor with 3 Omega Seamaster Diver 300 meters, including the midsize. AJ and Paco the dog from Corona, California, celebrate a new generation 007 diver. That is the 2022 James Bond 60th anniversary. Send your shots to Monday Mailbag at the1916company.com to see your watches on this box. SAP7 joining in from England. Always appreciate you staying up late with me. We got Michael A. and James Carrion, who is another JLC fan, saying, ready for some cool watch-themed Mosso merch. Cull Obsidian saying $10, says it's a Tim Mosso cycling Lycra strap. I don't think Lycra would survive, but I like the idea. Okay, 2025 watch industry changes we need to see. Several of the changes we need to see in the industry start at the boutique, not in the factory. The wait list. Okay, guys. Training sales staff to discuss problematic supply situations and popular models. Here are the statements that should never again be uttered in a dealer's showroom. Absolutely not. I'm like, what the hell? It's as though I'm a 10-year-old asking to see Evil Dead. That might be my parents' response back then, but talk to me like I'm an adult if I'm coming in ready to wire the funds for a watch. Show some respect. Now, don't even bother asking me. I just did, so shut your condescending trap, dude. We're not even bothering to take new clients. Then shut the door and close the showroom, you jerks. You're gonna have to spend $200,000 before we can even talk about that watch. Fine, then I'll go buy a used Grubel 4C double tourbillon 30 degree for the same money. Since dealers as a group are incapable of consistently showing respect and tact while discussing a situation they face literally every day, it's time for brands to start training them and standardizing courteous responses. So, for example, of course, sir, we understand your interest and we're ready to provide continuous updates, event invitations, and brand-sponsored experiences during the waiting period, which we regret to inform is protracted at this time. How hard is that? I made that up in like a day. I write this show same day. Or, as a matter of disclosure and respect to you, we don't want to make any promises that we cannot keep. Allocation of watches to each dealer is determined by the manufacturer, and it's really their discretion. A lot of this is spoken for by prior clients at this time, and it's projected to be so into the future. It would be insincere for us to put you on a wait list without any foreseeable time frame for delivery. Do you still want to get on the wait list? Stuff like this needs to be taught as much as any kind of new model product details. The traveling brand trainers for all of the manufacturers seem to be conditioned to teach excruciating details of product tech, spec, price, and availability windows, to the extent that sales strategies and back and forth even gets discussed. It tends to be counters to client objections, amounting to hard sell tactics and a focus on how to move slow-moving models. Tact, courtesy, and respect need to be on the agenda every time, for every brand, at every price point. In fact, they might require separate training sessions for showroom staff, and the trainers might need to have backgrounds in business psychology or performance coaching more than just sales hustle and memorizing stats. This is desperately needed in the industry right now. It's a big part of the experience. Brands already send out secret shoppers, or ghost shoppers, as they're called in the industry, to check for practices like unpermitted markups, prohibited discounting, prohibited sales practices like trans-shipping or gray market dumping, and conversions of unsold new inventory to pre-owned stock. Brands already look for this and send in people to ask and try to catch dealers doing things that they shouldn't. But it's high time for the best brands, or at least those that see themselves as such, to send out scouts who can assess the courtesy, warmth, diplomatic chops, and tactical ethics of their dealer network. This would improve the experience. If respectful sales practices are being taught by brand trainers, then it makes sense to assess whether they're being practiced on the showroom floor. Okay, KVB, if I'm spending 4 or 5 figures, respect is the least one can ask for. We have Ludig saying, I even told my AD how much my wife's boyfriend earns. and he was totally unmoved. We got Huxley, Orwell, and Rand saying F.P. Journe has been doing a great job with new clients, maybe other than the Paris boutique who are very French, if you know what I mean. True, but so is he, so you're sort of getting the full experience. And then we've got the Timekeeper's Guide asking, what's the address to send a pic of your watch to be displayed on the show? That is Monday mailbag at the1916company.com. Culobsidian saying, my Rolex AD in London is directly trained by HQ, also in London. With Patek past a certain level, you have to go to Geneva to keep on working for a boutique. That's pretty cool. Mark S. saying, exactly. What else is going on here? Grandmaster Chime, the wait list shouldn't be longer than the warranty or your predictable life, as many of the people who can afford this stuff are very old, and if you tell them 8 to 10 years, as some brands now do, that might be a death sentence, and a watch should never be a death sentence. Okay guys, publish all dimensions of a watch. How about this? Well, maybe not 4 dimensions, that's going a little bit far, but I do like Quanta magazine. My own reviews have long published all measurable dimensions, including diameter, thickness, lug to lug, and the space between the lugs, that is, the strap spacing. Often, thickness and lug to lug will tell you more about the size of a watch and how it fits than the bare diameter. Fortunately, at least 2 brands are really setting an example in this regard. First, we have Omega. Go on their page. Can we go full screen with that? So Nick's going to bring that up. Right there, not only has Omega jumped into metrics with gusto, but the company has gone as far as measuring the weight of its watches, which even I haven't done on a regular basis. Second, we have Breitling, which embraces extended measurements almost to the point of absurdity, with not one here, but 2 expressions of product mass and lughorn spacing detailed to the hundredths of a millimeter. Okay, I am all for it, guys. Omega, Breitling, you are leading the way. You are the light of the industry. May all others follow. Wrist shots number 3, Blaine T. and his daughter mark a special occasion as she has received her master's in English. And here we have a double Zinn EZM7 Firefighters watch, double shot, father and daughter, both with the Firefighters mission timer. Danny N. takes in the sights and sounds of a warm November day with his Christopher Ward bel canto, full bracelet. Clement L. wears the first Omega in space and watches the SpaceX TD7 launch. Very cool. Andrew H. pairs his Bulova lunar pilot with the James Webb Space Telescope logo t-shirt. Klaus S. of Germany wears his vintage tribute Movado for a classic wrist pose. Guys, send them to Monday mailbag at the1916company.com to see your wrist on my list. And we've got Norm M saying 1916, my company, could do a better job of listing Power Reserve. That's what my videos are for. And then we've got BNS saying it's always for the next generation anyway, right? I don't know, can your heir inherit your place on a wait list? I don't know that that has ever been codified or written up in legalese, but I would love to see it attempted. And then we have Sutat saying you get to dine at the F.P. Journe restaurant with your F.P. Journe watch if you're so inclined. Well, that does add to the experience, and Thomas Burnett shouting out to Klaus saying a beautiful Movado, and I agree. Okay, my regrets. Watch I bought and regretted. These watches I bought and I regretted them. I've bought quite a few watches in my time. This is sort of the postscript to tonight's show. Some watches I enjoyed more than others. Some I enjoyed but could have enjoyed more if I'd waited a little bit longer and got what I really wanted. So here are my regrets and why I had second thoughts. First, my Master Ultra Thin 34. So I have a Jaeger and a Jaeger right there for those of you who are into that sort of thing. So the first one I bought off of eBay. The photos weren't great, but it looked mostly up and up. I also got assurances from eBay that if the thing wasn't up and up, I could return it. And indeed, I got it, and the photos had not fully disclosed contact between the hand, that's the minute hand, and the underside of the crystal. And so, no problem, I availed myself of the eBay buyer's rights, and I was able to get the watch returned to the seller, but I had a runaround that soured me on buying watches online. And so if I had just been a little bit more patient and found one in person, or demanded better photos, or found a listing with a better example, I could have saved myself that runaround. Now again, eBay made it super easy to send the watch back. This was right after I got out of the Navy in 2013, but I shouldn't have had to have done that. The experience should have been seamless. I should have been more patient. I will also say I had more regrets with the next version of that watch I got, which was identical, albeit from a different seller, because a client overwound it and broke it. So I just have bad luck with the Master Ultra Thin 34, but as they say, sometimes third time is the charm. I would love to own one again. Okay, my Master Moon, great watch, and also the wrong one for me. I really wanted a perpetual calendar, so I wound up with both of them, as I later went out and bought a perpetual calendar from the same brand. Once I had my platinum Master Grand Memovox perpetual calendar, which you could see right there back in 2015, how much wrist time was I really going to devote to that lovely little Master Moon? I mean, the Grand Memovox was platinum, Kurt Klaus perpetual calendar, Memovox alarm with a bronze gong, limited edition, weighed as much as a battleship anchor. Oh my God, I loved that thing. In other words, I thought $5,500 was a great deal for the Master Moon, until the $24,000 Platinum Perpetual showed up on Chrono 24. So, both good deals, but in combination, not the right thing to do. I spent $5,500 more than I needed to, because I wasn't patient or focused. Eyes on the prize, guys. If you want a watch, hold out until the watch is available. Now, if we go back to that watch right there, you could see that lovely sunburst metallic blue dial. And the next watch that I regretted was something I bought in lieu of a watch. I know a lot of you guys are car guys, so you may remember my immortal Fisker Karma. Oh yeah, that's it. Matching shirt, JLC hat, and car. I took it all the way. So, this car was my favorite mistake of all the mistakes I've ever made. And yes, it had a clock on the dashboard, so it was a timepiece in a manner of speaking. Now, I only owned it for a few months, and to say the least, there were ghosts in the machine, so to speak. Stuff went haywire. Windows would lower and raise themselves. Things would turn themselves on and off. It wouldn't start, then it wouldn't shut down. I went online to discover that relative to other owners, I had it easy with mine. But my God, was that thing crazy. Look at it. Look at that paint. Look at those wheels. Look at the shape of it. This should come with a parental advisory. But others had to deal with battery replacements, motor replacements, dead interior displays, fires. Yeah, it was that kind of car, at least to some owners. I actually bought it new in 2015, despite it being a 2012, and I got it for $58,000, despite an original sticker price of $122,000. Now guys, that kind of discounting doesn't happen even at Stellantis dealers these days. So, I should have realized from the beginning, yeah, Stellantis is taking it on the chin. God help you if you're selling them, but if you want to buy a Maserati, Alfa Romeo, Lancia, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram, this is the time. But I should have realized from the beginning that this was the most emotional of irrational purchases. Incredibly, I got out scot-free and I sold it for what I paid. So it and my Reverso Tourbillon were the only foolish major financial decisions for which I faced literally no consequences, as I sold them both for what I paid. But wow, every angle on that car was absolutely eye-popping. That car was porn and arrestingly gorgeous. I still want one of the redesigned Karmas that they sell today, and I think inevitably I'm going to make a stupid decision again. Okay, next up, two Zins. First, my EZM 1.1. You might be shocked to see this watch on the list because I loved that watch. But we can also critique that which we love, and it was the wrong choice, and here's why. I loved it, but it never felt like a perfect match. I'm a fairly austere person. Fisker Karma accepted. That was my one crazy indulgence. And the utilitarian Zin was a perfect match for my personality and frankly, more me than any of the JLCs. But here's the thing. It was too big at 43 millimeters, and there lies the rub. What I really needed was the original titanium EZM1 from the 90s at 40 millimeters, but it can be hard to find and pricey to buy if you can locate a good one. I loved the EZM 1.1's indelible tegimented hardened steel case, the monster lume, and the useful center register chronograph. All of that was hugely appealing to me. I loved the brand behind it. But at the end of the day, I also loved things like the below-the-radar image brand and opaque monetary value. I wore it around the world on many adventures, including to Singapore, Dubai, Hong Kong, and beyond. But the smaller 40mm titanium watch is the one I should have bought. And at the end of the day, when I get back into the Zinn brand, that will be the one I buy. I'll spend a little bit more time like William Messina and get one that is an original 40 and on the full factory bracelet, which is even tougher to find. Second, the Zinn 6033 Frankfurt Financial District that I bought for my mom. This is a great watch, but in hindsight, this was the other extreme. It was too small at 34mm. It was the right watch in the sense that the 6033 was a prestige model from them, one of the most luxurious and versatile in style, not relentlessly military or tactical. This was something you would want to buy your mom and be proud to give as a gift. And it came with an upscale and loaded boxed set that spoke to the original price of this watch and its positioning at the top of the model line. But here's the deal. I also know that she wears the other watches I gave her more often. Notably, this includes several City Edition Swatch watches that I buy for her when I travel around the world, and a G-Shock DW5600 that she's probably watching now while she watches this. So, in hindsight, I should have bought her the slightly larger 6060, which is a very similar Zinn Financial watch, and this is 38.5mm, easier to see, easier to read, and more practical on a daily basis. But it was the holidays, and I didn't have access to a 6060 at the time, so quel dommage. Hindsight is 2020, or maybe I should say 6060. That said, maybe I can buy some straps for the 6033 that will make it more competitive a choice in her daily rotation with the Swatches, the Casio, and the Cartier that she now owns. And I should clarify once more that I am currently exploring options to offer both Tim Mosso accessories in between your watch purchases, and I'm going to offer long-lasting straps using a material never previously used in the watchmaking space. More on that down the line. Viewer wrist shots number 4. Gus G of Georgia. He's in the box now. He's on your screen with every accessory. And his Omega Sea Master Diver 300 meter with the Paris 2024 rubber strap. Looking good. Matthew S. and his IWC Pilot's Chrono AMG prepare for, and I'm not making this up, a heavy metal drumming session in Quebec. He has 10 original albums under his belt. He's the man. We have Stephen E., who joins from southern Michigan with his ever-lovely Hermes H08 on Titan. Marceau R. rides sidecar alongside his BMW with his Grand Seiko On Bashira Festival GMT chronograph, the greatest watch ever created to honor a log rolling festival. And then we got Chris S. takes us home with his Tudor Black Bay 41 at San Diego's Pier with the Star of India and his daughter. His daughter chose the trip to San Diego, and he bought this watch to commemorate alongside the old Windjammer. Guys, send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com or the1916company.com to see your analog on my digital. Joseph P. in the box, another old friend, great to see. Welcome to one and all, and thanks so much for making this a blast. Thanks to Nick for keeping up. He's always a champ. Time out, Tim out, and thanks for logging on.